Good evening. The October 8th, 2025 meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Education will come to order. As is our practice, this meeting will be recorded. I note that Marco Chavez, Deputy Superintendent, Educational Services Division, is attending on behalf of Superintendent McGee this evening. The board provides remote access for members of the public and welcomes community members joining in person and remotely. The board is following the requirements of Assembly Bill AB 2449, which enables remote participation by board members only under specific circumstances. We use simultaneous interpretation in Spanish for those attending virtually through the end of public comment. Translation will continue further into the meeting if people are utilizing the channel. Thank you to our interpreters, Ana Cruz and Kimberly Larios, for joining us remotely. For meeting attendees wishing to access the Spanish translation channel on Zoom, please click on the interpretation button on the menu bar. We ask all speakers to be mindful of the Spanish interpretation and speak slowly and clearly. Item 1B is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. There is a motion to approve the agenda made by Trustee Gerard and a second by Trustee Alvaro. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the agenda for tonight's meeting has been approved. Item 2 is public comment. Guidelines for public comment are available on the SMCOE website and in board docs and on the table outside the boardroom in both English and in Spanish. Speakers who require Spanish interpretation, our interpreters, Ms. Cruz and Ms. Larios, will interpret following each speaker's comments. At this time, members of the public may provide comment for topics not included on the approved agenda. The County Board of Education does not act upon any matter that has not been agendized except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. It is the policy of the County Board to refer matters raised in this forum to the superintendent for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, do we have any comments submitted prior to the meeting?
No comments submitted prior to the meeting.
Thank you. Speakers are invited to make live comment and have 3 minutes to speak. Please keep within the time limits. To make a comment over Zoom, members of the public may use the raise hand feature. Instructions for using this feature are provided as an attachment in the board packet. And once the hand is raised, please wait to be acknowledged by Deputy Superintendent Chavez. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, are there any members of the public attending remotely who wish to make a comment at this time?
No raised hands at this time.
Oh, that was for remote attendees. Yeah. So members of the public may also provide live comment in person. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, are there any submitted cards?
We don't have any cards, but did you need a card, sir?
Public comment addressing a specific agenda item will be heard after the board's discussion on the item. If members of the public wish to speak to a specific agenda item, please use the raise hand feature when the item is announced, or if in person, submit a card in advance of the item. And then just a reminder that we have 3 minutes, and timer will be on the screen.
Mr. John Hoffman.
And what I believe is the need for a revised curriculum. I am amazed that it is taking more than 6 months for the steering committee to be organized. And I believe that there should be business input from businesses that are actually currently hiring. Previously, committees have been composed mostly of educators or educational businesses related or business related to education, and not those that are actually hiring CTE type graduates. So I would ask that that the board be aware and push for the completion of the steering committee's composition within the next 30 to 60 days, and that include the majority of businesses that are actually hiring students as apprentices, leading to full-time work. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other cards?
No other cards.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3A, we have the introduction of Tammy Banu, Coordinator, College Career and Community Partnerships. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm happy to be here. And my background is I started as an English teacher and high school administrator in Albany Unified and also in San Francisco as principal of Galileo Academy of Science and Technology, where we had 6 academies in ways, and that's been one of my passions as a high school educator. And most recently, I was superintendent's office director of strategic initiatives. My role now here, I'm on the college. Okay, yes, the college career and community partnerships team, and my specific role is the K-12 partnerships coordinator, working with the Bay Area Community College District, working on dual enrollment and CTE programming. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Item 3B is the introduction of Jay Takahashi, Chief Technology Officer, Business Services Division. Also welcome.
Good evening, Board President Torres, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Chavez. My name is Jay Takahashi. I am the Chief Technology Officer now. I'd like to start off by saying that I am a product of this school system here in San Mateo County. I grew up in San Mateo. I went to Sunnybrae Elementary School, Burrell Middle School, and Aragon High School. So I'm honored to be in this position and have an impact on students' lives through the experiences that I myself went through. My professional journey started with the County of San Mateo and the Human Services Agency, where I worked as a benefits analyst and helped families receive support from assistance programs such as Medi-Cal, CalFresh. From there, I moved on to work for San Mateo County Health. I worked in the health IT department as a project analyst to deploy a new platform called the Health Information Exchange, where we connected siloed electronic health medical record systems into one platform, ultimately, hopefully improving patient care outcomes. Then I've moved on to San Mateo County Office of Education. I started here as a project and operations analyst, working as a support for all IT projects, as well as internal operations. I was then promoted to coordinator of information systems, where I focused more on implementing new technology in terms of project management, as well as training in those areas. After that, I promoted to a manager of media and IT operations, where I managed the media and AV operations team, as well as the application support team and the IT operations team. And now here I'm a CTO. So I think this is my 3rd time introducing myself. So many of you I have met before. If not, I look forward to meeting you again. But a common pattern throughout my journey is that I've always leaned into technology to make more efficiency, more efficacy, more collaboration, and enable equity. And so I hope to continue to do this and build this on the momentum that I've done so far, whether it's here internally within the SMCOE in our school programs, such as special ed and core and community. Also now exploring more of how we can do this with our districts, because I think that's somewhere that we have some room to grow, and I'd really like to explore those areas. Again, I just feel like it's my turn to pay it forward, being a child growing up here in San Mateo County. So I am really appreciative of this time. I also really wanted to say one more thing. Deputy Superintendent Chavez reminded me that previously when I was here, there used to be an exercise where new leadership would introduce themselves by saying 3 interesting facts about themselves. And I think that was to build a connection on a personal level between everyone. So I thought I'd go back to my original introduction. And the way that I framed it was I did three of the most commonly questions I was asked when I first started here. The first one is when you hear my name, Jay Takahashi, everybody always asks, are you related to Takahashi Market? And yes, I am. I still am. I haven't gone there recently, but if you ask my family, they may say, maybe not he's anymore. He's kind of left us, but I still love him anyway. Second question is, how long does it take you to do your hair? Because when I first started, I had a pompadour that's really high, and it took me maybe 20 minutes. But over the years, I've learned that time is the essence. So I've tightened down a little bit. It's funny because I think every job that I've had here, I've always had a new haircut or hairstyle. And so I always tell people, you know, just like technology, that's always changing and always evolving, so are my haircuts, right? The question number 3 that I get is, do your socks always match your outfit? And so I've always worn suits. My socks usually match my suits or my shirt or something. And the reason for that was when I first started my professional journey, I was told, and this stuck with me, it was don't dress for the job you have, but dress for the job you aspire to have. And so going through, you know, the Human Services Agency, being in hospitals with the health system, coming here, everybody asks, why are you always so dressed up? And so now I think it's a full circle moment where now I am the CTO and now wearing a suit does fit and it makes sense. All that to say that I'm very excited in this new position. I'm very excited to work with all of you in the future. And I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I think the first time I met you, you had a pink suit on because you had plans to go see Wicked. I think. Was that you? Or something, yes. Yes, I remember. Okay, moving on to item 4A. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 3rd, 2025 regular board meeting as presented? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve the minutes of the September 3rd, 2025 regular board meeting made by trustee Love and a second by trustee Gerard. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the minutes of the September 3rd, 2025 regular board meeting have been approved. For item 4B, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2025 retreat as presented?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. There's a motion to approve the minutes of the September 17th, 2025 retreat made by trustee Gerard and a second by trustee Alvaro. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the minutes of the September 17th, 2025 retreat have been approved. Item 5 is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is not debatable and requires a unanimous vote for passage. An item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular order of business for separate discussion and action if any member of the board, superintendent, or the public so requests. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second? Thank you. There is a motion to approve the consent agenda made by trustee Alvaro and a second by trustee Love. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the consent agenda has been approved. For item 6A, Kevin Baltima, Deputy Superintendent, Business Services Division, Minette Mineo, Executive Director, Internal Business Services, Marian Reyes, Manager, Fiscal Services, and Eric Arteaga, Supervisor, Fiscal Services, will present the 2024-2025 unaudited actuals year-end closing report. The floor is all yours.
Good evening, Board President Torres, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Chavez. We're going to present the financials from the prior fiscal year. And with that, I'll turn it over to the team.
Good evening, President Torres, members of the board, Deputy Superintendent Chavez. All right, so we're going to be presenting the unaudited actuals. Now, these reports represent actual revenues and actual expenditures recorded in the previous fiscal year. Now, this is not a budget. This is our true financial performance as a measurement. Now, do keep in mind that these numbers are presented before our annual independent audit is complete. But before we get into that, there are a couple of items that we would like to highlight. This past year was our second of our 3-year implementation plan of our new ERP system. And while it didn't present some challenges and a lot of trainings, I can gladly report that things have gone very smoothly. Still learning a lot, but very happy with where we're at so far. Over the past year, we've also implemented the classification and compensation study for our CSEA 158 group. And we've also increased the compensation for our SMCEA, confidential, and management group to at 3.5%, with an additional increase to our health and welfare. We've also completed the environmental studies and statewide curriculum project, which we contracted with 10 Strands on that. The career and technical education courses have also begun being provided at Gateway. And lastly, over 36% of our employees either got their computers updated or replaced. I'll pass it on.
Thank you, Eric. Good evening. So I'm here to present, and sorry about the title should be an income statement and not this expenditure by object report. So this is just an overview of where we are on terms of revenue and expenses. So you can see like the total revenue is 116 million, expenses at 115, and the transfer in is to fund for the ERP implementation and the firewall that we acquired. So that was a transfer in from Fund 17. Transfer out are transfers to other funds, and then contributions of 1.9. So this is from unrestricted going to restricted programs. So we have a change in fund balance of about 3.5 million. So the next slide is the revenue in just in a pie graph. So you can see that our biggest revenue is coming from LCFF, but just to mention that this also includes the property tax that we always have to send back to the state. Other funding resources are the federal, which included the COVID dollars. The state is including the special ed, and the local are fee for services that we have. So this next slide is actually expenses of the unrestricted and restricted too. So it's also just a graphic representation of the income statement. So if you can see, the big chunk of our expenses are the employee costs, which includes the certificated, classified, and the benefit piece. And also, I did mention earlier too about the other outgo, which is the property taxes that we have to send back to the state. So the next slide will be presented by Kevin Bolton.
So I know this slide can be maybe difficult to read from a distance, but we did want to show you any contracts that we spent last year. So, and we also want to show the change from budget to what we actually spent. Under the services of the board, our election costs, we were budgeting a little high. Ultimately, they came in a little under $600,000. We were actually budgeting over $750,000 for election costs. If you move down to the outdoor education program, we spent $1.16 million related to our contract for the Camp Jones Gulch property. And that is dependent on the number of students that are participating. There is, under the business service area, a liability that we recorded at the end of the fiscal year related to PERS. We're still working with PERS going back all the way to 2021. But we wanted to record kind of worst case scenario as we were going back. And so we recorded a liability that we ultimately did not have within the budget. But we do point out that under the CECC tech, at least that's the former ERP or Enterprise Resource Programming Software System. We noted that this will be the last year that you will see the CECC component. This year in 25-26, that moves to an implementation cost that will cover out of our reserves in Fund 17. We do have a separate line item specifically for the ERP implementation, and we were just under budget in that area, about $20,000. Total cost in in the service area was 1.1 million, but there are additional costs in capital outlay that you'll see later in this presentation. And then if you move down to transportation, our largest contract that we have is with transportation. This was the first year of a new contract, 3-year agreement. And so although we missed the budget, those costs ultimately are getting billed back to Jefferson Elementary, who is subcontracting from us for their services. So ultimately, it didn't change our bottom line, but we did miss the budget related to our projection of expenditures. At the end, we budgeted to spend $12.3 million in contract services, and we spent 12.2 for a difference of $74,000. Okay, now we actually want to kind of hold ourselves accountable to what we said the financials would look like at our estimated actual compared to where we ended. If you look at the LCFF or local control funding formula, we were under budget, or I'm sorry, we were over budget by $220,000. Some conservatism there, but also property taxes plays a part in that, which is difficult to project to some extent. We're pretty accurate in our federal dollars and our state dollars. We see a fairly large change in our local revenue. The largest point, and I think this is important to point out, is a $1.77 million journal entry related to gain on investments. And that is at the end of the year, an accounting mechanism where we take a look at the cash that we have invested with the county treasury and we mark it to the market, and we actually record a journal entry for that. It's not operational. It doesn't change. Actually, we don't actually get that in new revenue, but it is an accounting mechanism. So I want to point that out because it does look like we had this change of $3.8 million to the positive when we were really projecting 1.7 million. But if you take out the 1.77 adjustment for this gain, our change from budget to actual was less than $300,000. I also want to point out under the area of expenditures, certificated salaries, classified salaries, and employee benefits, that variance for those 3 items is roughly $30,000. And the total is over 30 million. So this really speaks to staff doing an excellent job of projecting the budget for where we spend most of our money, which is on people. We will keep pushing ourselves. This is at our estimated actual towards the end of the year. We get better if we do that earlier in the year. If we can be that accurate, in May, that would be wonderful. But it is difficult to project the future in May, over a year before we close the books. But very impressed with staff in this regard of how accurate, and that just doesn't happen, by the way. That's a lot of work of going through position control and looking at our where we are expenditure-wise through the year and making adjustments into the budget. And it's important because it really represents dollars that can be used for other things, compensation, program enhancement. So the more accurate we are with these projections, the better decisions we can make with the dollars that were provided from the public. So we do see that we were under budget by almost $1 million in our supplies. We were under budget by almost $1.3 million in services. A portion of that, again, was offset through the transportation subcontract with Jefferson Elementary. Our capital outlay, we were actually over budget by $124,000, but as I mentioned earlier, we were under budget on services, so those somewhat offset. And we were also under budget, which we'll show later on salaries related to the ERP implementation. And now our indirect costs, this is very typical, and we got to talk about how to maybe work on this a little bit, but we base our indirect costs on what we think we're going to spend in our restricted programs, but we never spend every dollar in the restricted area. So inevitably, our indirect costs are coming in lower than budget. So we need to take a look at that and maybe get a trend analysis so that we can do a little better job with our indirect because it does offset our expenditures. So that's an area we can work on. Our transfers in, we really only transferred over from Fund 17 for the ERP implementation and for a firewall purchase. Our transfers out, which was mentioned, is related to transfer to Fund 12 for our early learning program. And our contribution is pretty accurate, actually, at just a variance of $40,000. So again, although we are recording a $3.8 million positive change in fund balance. If you take out the journal entry for the gain on investments, we're really closer to that $2 million mark. So this next slide is a lot of numbers, but it does show, if you kind of read it left to right, what we're trying to show is the progression through the year. And so part of this is to hold ourselves accountable. At the original budget that we developed in March, April, May for the next fiscal year, those are represented in the original budget column. But then we adjust the budget in October, November, and we do it again in the spring. And then we provide our estimated actuals as we're building our new original budget. And if you just go to the bottom line change in fund balance, the original budget showed a projected negative change in fund balance, meaning we would spend more money than we brought in at $587,000. At first interim, that changed where we were now projecting a positive change of almost $500,000. At second interim, it's at 1.78 million positive change. Not really much of a change at our estimated actuals. And then again, I point out that if you look at our change in fund balance with the journal entry removed for the gain on investment, we would have been at $2 million. But then we actually ended at the 3.8. So this is a typical change the way the budget works. It has to be, to some extent, a bit conservative at the beginning because we don't know. And we're budgeting for all expenditures. Everybody hired, spending every dollar for supplies and services. So the budget tends to get better as the year goes on. Sorry. Last slide from me. We do show the combined unrestricted and restricted, where previously we showed just the unrestricted side of the budget. We do see under state revenue that we were over budget by $970,000. That's in the restricted side, the AB 602 or special education, the SELPA, Special Education Local Plan Area Allocation. And again, we look at local revenue, and the biggest change here is on the restricted side. And we had a large grant related to Medi-Cal billing for counseling services. And that program really never got started with Santa Clara. And so we didn't realize almost $4.9 million in grant money. If you look under expenditures though, again, pretty accurate. And then under books and supplies, we're seeing some large changes under budget of almost $2.3 million. Again, most of that is related to the grant I just mentioned, but we also had in our ITS area almost $527,000 that we were expecting to spend in supplies, which we did not. Or actually, I'm sorry, we used that. Yes, we did not take that as supplies. Services, almost 4.9, almost $5 million under budget. And we kind of point out again that that is a large portion of that grant, 2.9 million. And then transportation, $500,000, and another grant of almost $1 million that we had budgeted in that area. And then the other algo portion is the increased property taxes, and as increased property taxes come to us, unfortunately, we don't get to keep them like a basic aid or community funded school district does. So we send those dollars back to the state. And ultimately our transfers went down because we only pulled over from Fund 17, the ERP implementation, the firewall dollars. So we ended the year in a better position than we were planning on, both on the unrestricted side and ultimately the restricted. I'll turn it over to Minette.
Good evening. I'm here to move with the rest of the slides, beginning with a summary of our one-time dollars. These are the COVID-19 relief funds that we receive both from the state and federal. So as you recall, the pandemic hit us in fiscal year 19-20. The years that's presented here is when we spent those dollars, and 24-25 was the conclusion of those dollars. We had to spend and report them to the state. September 30th was when we had to finally report and spend those dollars down. So as you can see, we strategically budgeted them throughout the years in hoping that, in the hopes of those, with those programs being sustained even now. The next slides is the presentation of our implementation costs. 23-24 was our first year of ERP implementation. Last year was a second, and we are now at full implementation. And I just want to highlight those ongoing costs began with around 2.5 million in year one. Then last year it was at 2.5, and as you can see, in the current year, it's at 2.1, and that's because of the sharing that we have with districts. The current cost sharing is about 70% SMCOE, and 30% of that is passed on to the districts. So with the new ERP, we are seeing cost savings, even and that's with both the financial component, the absence component, and the HR component. So we're seeing a cost savings with those combined systems. The next slides presents the historical ending fund balances, or the reserves. So as you can see in 21-22, that's represented of those restricted dollars that were COVID related. And as we spend them down, those red bars are kind of decreasing. And with the decrease, you'll see an increase of the green, which are now the unassigned dollars. So as you noted in the previous slides, 24-25 added about 3.5 million to our unassigned ending fund balances. So this now brings us to our last slide, and I just want to highlight a few points from the financial report. So as Kevin mentioned, our financial report there's a recording of 1.7 million related to gain on investments. It also showed improved accuracy of our budgeting and salaries and benefits. It included negotiated implementation of the class and comp for our CSEA 158 group. Those are mostly our paraeducators. We are currently negotiating our implementation of, that's actually done already. In the current year, we implemented the class and comp study for both CSEA 789 and 887. But you'll see that when we present the numbers for the current year. We also completed the implementation of the new ERP system, so we're now well into using that system. We showed that we spent all our one-time dollars related to COVID-19. So overall, we're showing that SMCOE is financially healthy. So with that, we're opening the floor to any questions.
Thank you. Are there comments or questions from the board? Trustee Lev? Oh, can you speak into your mic? Sorry.
Sorry about that. Did you hear that? Yeah. Okay. So on this healthy side, we're almost like so healthy that there are a lot of reserves. And just looking at the different funds, 14, 17, 19, 35, 40, there's just a lot of money. Looks like it's just sitting there. And then in that green column as well. So do you think that we are in a good place where we should be with reserves? Do we have too many reserves? Should that money be out doing things, supporting children, supporting schools? And or do you have things planned for some of those reserves?
I think that's also, there's that question when you don't have money, it's a problem. And when you have a lot of money, it's also a problem, but it's a good problem. But I think it's going to be that of a challenge to us in terms of delegating those funds, in aligning our actions towards our strategic plan and towards our priorities. So it's just a matter of how we allocate those funds wisely, I guess, in support of the kids of San Mateo County.
Can I just add, like what you're thinking of? So they're sitting there and I assume you were realize that that's a lot of money sitting there and you're thinking about what we can do with it. And I remember we had a meeting several months ago where you weren't really ready to talk about it, but I'm and I'm not on the budget committee, but I am curious what you're thinking.
I would add through the general fund right now, specifically, we have, you've not realized the full class and comp for all the classified side. You'll see that in the 25-26 budget. We also only have multi-year agreement with our teachers group. So as we get in negotiations, going back to 24-25 for 887, there's going to be pressure to do more multi-year. So it's very feasible that our change in fund balance number becomes more balanced. So we're not adding to reserves. Because again, if you're not covering a deficit, you're talking about compensation and talking about program enhancement out of the general fund. Now, the dollars we have in deferred maintenance, certainly want to use those to maintain this building and our schools. We have money in Fund 40 that we want to talk about related to facilities specifically, but it's starting with the program, not with the facility itself. And then our Fund 17, there is a lot of money in there. But there are things that we are talking about with workforce housing. There are other priorities within the strategic plan that I think we're going to see pressure in the near future that we can put those dollars into place. But that's a decision ultimately through the superintendent and through the board as we work through those.
Thanks.
Other comments or questions? Trustee Alvaro?
Thank you. I have a different microphone now. It still doesn't sound like it's working. It's on the green, Leo. I'm doing the best I can. I just want to point out one more time for the record that when you look at our slide, it's on page 6 here, it says the unrestricted and restricted revenue, that the outgo of property taxes sent back into the black hole of California equals more than the combined certificated and classified salaries for the entire year. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from the board? Are there any from the public?
No comments from the public.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the 2024-2025 unaudited actuals year-end closing report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There is a motion to approve the 2024-2025 unaudited actuals year-end closing report made by Trustee Bonini and a second by Trustee Alvaro. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the 2024-2025 unaudited actuals year-end closing report has been approved. Item 7A is the superintendent's comments. Deputy Superintendent Chavez, do you have any comments to share?
Just a couple of comments. One, I'm happy to announce that the San Mateo County Office of Education was recognized as a mid-size county office of the year, recognized by the California County Superintendents. So the California County Superintendents voted to award the San Mateo County Office of Education and recognize us for the work specifically around behavioral health, environmental literacy, and school safety. And also it's important to recognize that the California County Superintendents also called out Superintendent McGee's leadership in these areas. So I wanted to share that with all of you. And the second comment is to wish our Executive Director of Strategy and Communication a very happy birthday to Ian Bain. He'll be celebrating on October 12th.
Thank you. For item 8A, the board will discuss and act on the school funding task force report. Board members Love and O'Neill, would you like to begin?
Sure, thank you. I'll start and Trustee O'Neill, jump in if I miss something. Same with you, Board President Torres. So everyone has a copy of the most recent report. You had an earlier version. This new version Executive Director Bain updated to reflect our most recent meeting. So thank you for doing that. Board President Torres, Trustee O'Neill, and I attended these meetings. They were facilitated by County Office of Education staff or people they contracted with. We didn't run the meetings. The work supports two of the major roles of the county board per our governance handbook. One is providing community leadership on educational issues and advocating on behalf of students in public education at the local, state, and federal level. And the other major role from our governance handbook is maintaining a cooperative and supporting relationship with local school districts, their governing boards, and their communities. So this work fits, I think, really nicely with our governance handbook. And as shared previously, we had 4 meetings. We kind of started to understand the issue and hear about the inadequacies experienced by districts. Did some brainstorming on ideas, reviewed the report, and discussed with capital advisors sort of like, what do you think of these ideas that are kind of being generated? And got some good feedback. Hope that we'll have time to work on some legislation or something with Senator Becker's office and other legislators. And the 3 issues that kind of rose to the top were addressing the cost of living, seeing if there's something we could do with excess property taxes, and or addressing housing. And you also have in your folder just a report just came out on this exact same issue of districts that are high costs that have districts within them that don't receive nearly as much money. And so there's a lot of discrepancy. So I think that's a great report. And it also points out some issues that we may not want to address because they might cause conflict in our county. So next step is collaborating with capital advisors and Senator Becker's office to craft legislation. And we've been sharing information on this with CCBA and with some of the other counties that have all kind of been talking about there's a need for something like this. And the goal is to just have some legislation, hopefully introduced in January if we can get to that place. And then the question for the board tonight is just to acknowledge that it's reviewed the report and is supportive of the task force continuing its work with the superintendent and the County Office of Education staff to address this issue, which is a priority of several of our districts. And we want this discussion now to address any questions or comments. I also want to add that the San Mateo County School Boards Association does have an advocacy subcommittee, and one of the real active members of our task force is chairing that and is pretty engaged as well. So we hope that that group will, be a good partner. So that's it.
Beautifully said. Thank you, Trustee Lev. Trustee O'Neill, anything else to add? No. Thank you. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Trustee Bonini?
I just wanted to thank the committee for the work and for meeting with the districts. I think it's important to, gather information around this. When I was reading through, I don't have specific line items, but I was reading through, there were some questions that were posed, and maybe it was maybe during some of the meetings, or maybe in the summary, that I think were prior discussions that our board and our legislative committee had with Superintendent McGee and with the Superintendents Association, and things that were being pushed forward or paused. For instance, the property tax issue, there was, I think it was Orange County, I might be wrong, but there was a county that was sort of taking a lead, or a legislator that was taking a lead on that a couple of years ago. And it's a difficult issue. I'm not suggesting we don't address it because it's a lot of money, but it has sort of been a starting stop sort of a situation, and we've been raising it for years. So I just wanted to point that out, that, we've known about it. It's been discussed a lot. And so I feel like there was a little bit of information that might just need a little bit more historical information gathering. And that just might be because we need to ask some more people. But that can just go into the hopper for the work that the legislative committee will continue to do. And of course, SMCSBA's committee as well. So thank you. And it's exciting that we're trying to move things forward on this front. So I appreciate it.
Trustee Gerard?
Yes, I kind of want to piggyback on that and congratulate you on taking this on. because it really has, I think, brought a lot of attention to this particular subject, and everybody knew it was there, but not everybody wanted to talk about it. And I think that this has really gotten a lot of conversations going and people really realizing the inequities that there really are, because I think a lot of times they kind of just want to put their head under the covers and not really acknowledge it. And probably, I'll get in trouble for saying this, but probably the wealthier districts are the ones that don't really want people looking at this, because they're, even in San Mateo County, are huge disparities, just huge. And there aren't a lot of people that are aware of that. And so this is really bringing it up front, and I really appreciate it. And I also really appreciate you bringing it to ACCBE as well, because it was something that we talked about right from the get-go that we wanted to be involved in. So thank you very much.
Are there other comments or questions from the board? Trustee Alvaro?
Thank you. This microphone actually works. Thank you to the committee for all this work. And I did also notice, Trustee Gerard, that there were certain districts missing from the discussion, and then not a big surprise. So this is great work. There's a lot of good ideas, obviously a lot of challenges. And I'm wondering if the committee has plans to begin to have this discussion in a more, I would say, public way, like editorials in the newspaper, or not necessarily written by you, but there's John Mays at the Journal, for instance, might be really interested in saying, this is interesting, I want to write about it, and taking a lead on it, because I think it's really important. I mean, the discussion that we constantly have about how we send all this money back to the state for non-educational use, which is the real thorn. It's not going to other school districts, it's going to the courts. Which you might think was educational, but I could argue that it isn't. But just that idea, to begin to reach out, there's that, and the disparities in funding. I mean, if you hear from anybody, it's that schools have too much money and they're wasting it all. And all the districts are funded the same, and we all know that that's not true. And so thank you for doing this report. I think it's really important for us to put our name behind it as the entire board, and just try and see how we can, begin to move this forward into a more public sphere, because I think it needs to get heard.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
That's an excellent question. And I have in my notes that depending on how our conversation went tonight, to see if working with Executive Director Bain on, putting out maybe a release that the board has and the superintendent have come up with, are doing this work, and it responds to this report that just came out. So that's a big hook right there as well, that we're aware of it and we're actually doing things about it. And the things that are in our report are not as controversial as the things that are in that statewide report. So that's maybe a positive as well. So.
Trustee Arias?
I also want to thank for, I think when you see a report, you see these pages, this information, but I think we all know how much effort goes and how many meetings, how many talking about it, how much you invest of doing this work. So again, I want to thank you, because in my mind, what I'm thinking as I think about disparities is how in San Mateo County, how it looks depending where you live, right? And we get some of those, we hear about those intra-district transfers, or, but I think it has to do with the differences that you'll see of supports that are in one school that are not in another one, because they don't have enough money, right, to fund that. When we think about mental health, when we think about even APA classes or CTE or other opportunities that students have, when you compare within San Mateo County, you'll see these big discrepancies. And that's why I'm really thankful that you're putting this time and effort to really see to bring something that is so important. And I'm hoping that this is going to go and move forward in a way that is going to be positive for the outcome of all students in San Mateo County. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Any from the public?
No comments from the public.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the school funding task force report?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion to approve the school funding task force report made by trustee Gerard and a second by trustee Alvaro. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0 and the school funding task force report has been approved. This item will come back at the November 19th, 2025 meeting to discuss next steps. For item 8B, the board will have a first reading of the new board policy regarding student board members. No action is required. This will come back to the board at its November 19th, 2025 meeting for a second reading and action. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Any from the public? Oh, yes, trustee Bonini. Sorry.
So I know this is a first reading and I will follow up, I guess, with the committee and or with Lisa. But I did have a question that I just wanted to put out there for us to think about in terms of how the new policy is structured. So it still has the language in the beginning about generally having an application from the county. And then it goes into having, so that's there and it can happen because it's part of the law, right? And then we specifically say that we'll have 2 board members and that one will be our liaison and one will be from our schools, which is what we wanted. But my question is, what happens if we also have an application? So they're seem like they're sort of independently floating and they're not tied together. And so I'd like that to be a little more clear. So that's one comment. And then my next comment has to do with the language that's used in the just each section with the student board member eligibility. It says that we shall select 2 student county board members. I feel like it should be more permissive language that we may. That makes a difference, right? Because it makes it something that we must do, and maybe we aren't able to do it in a year, or there's some other issue. So I'd prefer it to say may. And then my last comment is there's a section in each of the liaison section and also the section for a student from our schools where it says that the student will receive support from the county superintendent. And I know that's somewhat how it happens now because there's information that has to come, but I would much prefer if it says the superintendent and the board so that the board has a role in supporting the student. And that would be a change in each of the sections that appears. And I will send those specifically to the committee. But those are my comments and thank you. Thanks for doing the work to modify it. It was great to have that.
Can I just say something? I want to thank Trustee Alvaro and Arias for working on the subcommittee to do this, and I appreciate those comments. I think I got them all down. I don't remember it being confusing about the application piece, so I think we'll go revisit all those things and see what's going on. And we can say, yeah, board support. Generally, staff have supported in a very large way the student members. So that was just building on that history.
Trustee Alvaro?
Thank you. We also had Council Cho with us the entire time we were having these meetings. And there were a couple of things, and I'm not going to be able to do this from memory, but she could because she always has great notes. There were a couple of things where, like with that application, it's part of the law and we leave it in. And what she had said to us was, we can say, thank you, we've already filled the spot. So if we already have, someone from if we're saying we're only going to take from our court and community schools and a youth commissioner, that's what we're going to take. So if somebody applies who is in the general population, we can say, thank you, these are the slots that we're doing. But there was something about her saying that thing about taking applications has to be in there, even if we take the application and say, this isn't what we need.
And the I'm sorry, the application would just be from Corn Community School students. It wouldn't be from other schools because we only would take a student from our program per that legislation, I believe.
Well, the first section, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
The first section is generally the county, sorry. And then there's two other sections, one for the liaison and one for the court and community. And I can understand if there might be a plan to do that, but really it should be clear in the policy. So it should say if we can, we would prioritize this and then do that, or whatever that looks like. I'll look at it a little bit more and potentially talk to Lisa Cho. But anyway, I just wanted to make sense so that it's clear to the students, because the reason that I raised this in the first place to make it clear was there was a student that was a county school student who said, hey, I want to do this, but it's not very clear in your policy how to do it. And so that's why I raised it initially, that we needed to have it on our radar and know what the process was. So it isn't beyond the scope of reason that we would have that other type of an application, I think.
Well, and the other thing that we talked about, and it's in here also, was doing outreach through the teachers and staff, or as Board President Torres has suggested, maybe a couple of us going out and talking to the students and saying, this is what it's about. Here's what we do, any questions, and trying to recruit one student to come on board. So we definitely have, there's some language that's implicit in here. It may not be explicit because, as I said, we have a council who says this is the way it has to be worded.
I have one more comment that I forgot to mention too, which is there's a statement in part of the policy, the revision, where it says that staff will interact and recommend a student, help them write a letter or write a statement. And I think that's great. And I think that's what we talked about. But I also think that there should potentially be a pathway where they can do it independently, where it doesn't have to rely on staff, because I think that might just, be more inclusive for some students. So that was my last comment. I apologize for omitting it.
Thank you. Are there other comments or questions from the board? Any from the public?
None from the public.
Thank you. There is no action to take on this item. For item 8C, the board will discuss and act on the formation and topics to be addressed by an ad hoc San Mateo County Community College District Joint Meeting Planning Subcommittee. First, the board will discuss and take action on the formation of this subcommittee. If the subcommittee is formed, then we will discuss topics for the subcommittee to address. Board Member Bonini, would you like to begin the conversation?
So I think that we've had some interaction in past years, a joint meeting with our community college district. And so that's where this idea came from. And so the formation of a committee was really sort of to do some of the pre-work that we might do to brainstorm ideas, but to meet with hopefully a committee or a couple of members from the community college district to determine what might be the agenda, and also to logistically, help arrange for such a meeting so that we can have that communication. We do have, I think, a lot of things in common, and we've had past interactions, and we have current things such as our middle college and our project change and things like that. So that's why it's on our agenda.
Thank you. Time for comments and questions. Trustee Alvaro?
I just had a question about this. We have had a couple meetings in the past where they've come and more or less productive discussion. Our calendar's set for the year and it's full. And I'm pretty sure, looking at their calendar set for the year and it's full. So are we talking about next school year?
I don't think it's determined.
Okay, I'll just put that out. That would be my preference, that we say, okay, this is something we want to do. You know, as we set our board calendar out in advance, this is something we want to do in the next school year with the community college, because I just don't, I see our calendar already as being pretty packed.
Right, and I think now would just kind of be the planning and pre-planning for it. So then hopefully it's something that maybe by the end of the school year is more solidified so that it's ready to start either in the summer or start of the school year. But I think maybe that timing we can discuss in the planning portion of it. Trustee Love?
This is for a subcommittee, right? So maybe a 2 and 2. So it really doesn't need to be part of our board schedule or impact our board schedule. I think if we have 2 people or 3 people who want to participate on the board, at any point, we're ready to do that. I think that should be fine.
Yes, Trustee Benitez?
Just for clarification, the committee was to be formed to develop an agenda for a joint board meeting between our board, with our board and with the community college board in their entirety. So the work of the committee can go forward.
That's what I'm saying. The work of the committee can go forward, whether it's this year or next year, whenever it is, but we don't need to wait till next year to start meeting.
Right. Trustee O'Neill?
Do you envision including the adult school consortium?
I would need more information on what you're asking. I don't know.
Adult School Consortium is the partnership. It's funded by the state. It's where I worked when I was working for the high school district. And it's jointly managed by the community college district and the K-12 the 12 districts, the high school districts, and the adult school division. And some of the challenges they're facing, especially regarding ICE, getting distribution, scheduling, and funding, because a lot of their funding is being lowered because of students scared to come to school. So I think the Adult School Consortium should at least be invited to come to this joint meeting, since it's managed by both entities.
I think that the topics or what we would be discussing, or, if we were going to address something, excuse me, that was related to that, there are probably other groups as well that would be interested in being included. So I think it would just be that initial discussion. Who should be in the room? What are the topics? That's what the committee will be tasked with working on. So great idea.
Yeah, it'd be a great priority topic to focus on. Yeah, I like that. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Trustee Gerard?
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree. I don't see any reason why we couldn't form the committee now so that we can be planning for the future, whether it be later next year or what we come up with. But I think if we don't get started, we're never going to get there.
Trustee Alvaro?
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting postponing the committee formation. I was just simply suggesting that the meeting itself should happen in the next school year. No, the committee should get going right away. That wasn't my suggestion. I apologize if it was confusing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions from the board? Are there any from the public? Oh, Trustee Benini?
Well, so my understanding is that we're going to form the committee.
First, yes. First, we need a motion or approve it, and then the second part
Oh,
would
and
be
then
to
you're gonna
discuss.
form. And then I guess if there are any other ideas that any of our board wants to share, that can be done in a later time as well. Okay. I just
Yeah,
wanted
and then
to-
discussing who would be joining and forming that.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any comments from the public?
No comments.
Thank you. Is there a motion to create an ad hoc San Mateo County Community College District Joint Meeting Planning Subcommittee? Oh, sorry, it says comprised of, so I think we need to discuss who would be a part of that first before we go ahead and motion to approve that. So I would assume Trustee Benini, you would chair?
I'm happy to be on the committee.
Okay, so we have Trustee Benini. Do we have other members who would like to be part of that subcommittee?
I will.
Thank you. We have trustee Gerard
I can be.
and trustee Arias. Okay, so now that we have our three, is there a motion to create an ad hoc San Mateo County Community College District Joint Meeting Planning Subcommittee comprised of trustee Benini, trustee Gerard, and trustee Arias? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. There is a motion to create an ad hoc San Mateo County Community College District Joint Meeting Planning Subcommittee comprised of trustee Benini, trustee Gerard, and trustee Arias, made by trustee Love and a second by trustee Gerard. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The motion passes with a vote of 7-0, and the formation of an ad hoc San Mateo Community College District Joint Meeting Planning Subcommittee comprised of trustee Benini, trustee Gerard, and trustee Arias has been approved. So the board may now discuss topics for the subcommittee to address. Board member Benini, I turn it back to you.
Well, I think we've had a couple that were raised already, so revisit that. I think the things on my list and are, project change and just how we're all finding that and what we know about it jointly. I already talked about middle college and how that's evolving or how that's working in our county and how that also might impact our own schools. And other potential partnerships on work that's happening in both spaces. I'm thinking early education, CTE, apprenticeships, trades. Those were my ideas, but I'm opening the floor to other ideas just to get the committee started.
And then I know trustee O'Neill mentioned like the adult school as another priority.
Send you the name. I can send you the name and contact. The name and contact information for the chancellor of that business. There was another issue, I think, the grand jury just came out with another report on education and the lack of education in both GED high schools, especially in the jails. I haven't finished reading the report, but I think that's something that should be addressed also.
Thank you.
Continuing high school ed in the jails.
Thank you.
Yes, Deputy Superintendent Chavez.
I just wanted to offer if there's a need for coordinating the meeting or reaching out to the community college district, just let me know. Happy to help.
Thank you. Other input from the board? Are there any comments from the public?
No comments.
Thank you. There is no action to take on this part of the item. So for item 8D, when an ad hoc subcommittee meets or a representative attends a meeting related to their given assignment, board members may choose to bring a report to the board at this time. Would any board members like to report out? Trustee Benini?
Yes. For my notes. So the Gateway subcommittee met on September 23rd. And it was actually just trustee Gerard and myself. So we met with Chris Schaus and I believe the principal for Gateway, right? And I'm forgetting his name.
Freedom.
Yes, sorry. And so we got an update on the work that was done by the design committee in years prior on the different priorities that were raised. Three of the three top priorities, just for reference back, were expanding partnerships with the community college, which falls in line, right, with our new committee. Transitions in and out, so programming with that, and then professional learning and collaboration for staff. So we got an update on that and also some outcome information, so that was really helpful. If the board is interested in hearing more about that, we can also request that come back to the whole board if that's of desire. We also, talked about things that we've been hearing about from staff, whether it's in public comment or whatnot, about staffing. We know that there were postings for some positions that some teachers had left. And so we got just an update generally on how things are going. And then we as a committee really were just asking how we can be of assistance as a board. We know that there is a lot of work that's going on, a lot of attempts to sort of bolster the program. That was the whole intent of the design process that happened last year, the year before. And so in addition to knowing how it's going, like we want, part of our subcommittee charge is to make sure the board's engaged with that process. And so we talked a little bit about that, about how in terms of budget priorities or other things in terms of the reserves that we have, is there something that we can do to help in that framework? That was kind of in line too with the conversations or the information that was shared with us around outreach to the districts on all the good things that are going on and how they're trying to make sure that we are meeting the gaps in the districts. So are there high school districts or even middle schools that can use can benefit from our services, and what does that look like? And so they're really starting to have those conversations. So it was a great meeting. We got a lot of new information. So that's pretty much a summary. Does anyone have, or do you have any additional
No,
comments?
I think you covered it, and it was a very informative meeting with excellent discussions. So it was well worth the meeting.
Yeah, I feel like it was really helpful for us, and then we're happy to share that out. So if anyone else has questions, we're happy
And
to-
we did have some tough questions that we asked.
We did.
But we got some really good answers. Maybe not always what we wanted, but they were good answers. So
Yeah, so maybe more to come on that, but I'm sure we'll get more updates
Yeah.
as the work continues, and as we have more meetings, we'll bring more to you.
Any comments or questions for the Gateway Subcommittee? Any other members wanting to report out? Yes, I was gonna do that one.
I don't think we do. Kevin, do we have any more housing information? We have not received any more from when we reported out the last time. We haven't had another meeting.
Yeah. No, we didn't turn down. We just, so what I was going to comment for the Workforce Housing Subcommittee is we are receiving a few requests from different districts who are pursuing their own housing projects, not aligned with what we originally had planned as a workforce subcommittee. So what our next steps are as a subcommittee is to meet and create like the parameters for districts who are requesting our help, just so that when we do make a decision, it is equitable, that they go through the same process, that we have parameters that we're trying to measure up to it. So that way, again, just for equity purposes. I know you shared a district that was interested in pursuing our help. Again, there's other districts requesting that same support, and we just want to make sure that we are aligned as a team, and that we bring that to the board so that we agree on how we move forward. Anything else?
Can I just make? one
Yes.
comment? I just wanted to comment that when it's difficult in some ways, because when we have a subcommittee, we sort of have a charge that's set out for the subcommittee. And this specific subcommittee, although it's workforce housing and that sounds broad, was specific to the MOU with HART. So, and giving quick feedback when they needed it in terms of reviewing properties, and being able to do that in a quicker turnaround than we could do at a board meeting. And so we've been doing more and more of that, and we've been very interested in that. And really, I think the benefit of that program or that MOU is that ultimately it could have countywide impact, right? But first and foremost, I feel like it's an impact that we want to have for our office and for our staff and our teachers. And so that was our focus. And so we're now seeing these other needs and being presented. So now we did have a meeting, right? I think we've already reported on it, but where we are now going, oh, maybe we need to try to expand that. And I think before we expand it, we need to come up with, and staff is working with us to do that, I think, to come up with these parameters that President Torres talked about, so that we can bring that back to the board to say, board as a whole, is this where you want us, is this what you want to consider? And how would we make such decisions? Would it be a committee that would take it on, or would it come to the board as a whole? So we don't have the answers to that yet. So we're trying to work through that. Did I state that accurately?
Yes, that's a work in progress. Anything else to add for that? Okay. Any questions for the workforce subcommittee from the board? Okay. Any other members wanting to report out? Are there any comments from the public?
No comments from the public.
Thank you. There is no action to take on this item. For item 8E, board members will comment. Trustee Love?
Thank you. I did love the media release that was put out today about the county office receiving that award. I thought it was well written. I don't think Executive Director Bain is here, but congratulations to him and to the county office. That was a nice award and well deserved. I appreciate the discussion on the Workforce Housing Task Force. Just felt really great to get to this point and to go forward, and appreciation to Board President Torres and Trustee O'Neill and some of the staff who've been working closely on this. I think it's a good example of how we can work together positively, like with the housing subcommittee, with the county superintendent and the board, to amplify the work. I'm excited about our work on goals. I don't know if we've scheduled anything to do that, the next kind of retreat or meeting, or.
I had a debrief with Deputy Superintendent Chavez and Ian Bain and Trustee Gerard with our facilitator Dave, and we are planning next steps. Yes, and so hopefully a communication goes out to the board of what to expect.
Great. And I think there's you'll probably talk about the AAC BE meeting that's tomorrow.
That's okay.
On Concord Community Schools, right?
Yeah.
So I think that will be exciting if people can tune into that. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee O'Neill? Oh, your mic.
I'm just doing this because this meeting is recorded versus the retreat wasn't. I attended the CSBA conference down in Monterey. I did attend a workshop on charter schools oversight. I also created, and as did all the board members, go to a workshop put on by Placer County for creating a methodology for legislative lobbying. What was interesting there is learned of some potential services that if we chose to take a lead in it, I think could really help some school districts here in San Mateo County. One was a service that has a predictive algorithm and analysis that could go to a school district and tell them if they will need to close a school in the foreseeable future. Being every school district in this county is declining enrollment, I was wondering if that is something the county would want to look at and offer, because I know there's at least one school district starting that process of how to of closing a school. But if they have that predictive analysis or that algorithm, they can start communicating to the community and also maybe semi-identify which school, so that they could then try to get the entitlements on that property to decide what they want to do, whether it's a sale, a lease, or housing, or retain for leasing, whatever. I thought that was a service. Another service I thought would be very interesting, and I did check with one of the core agencies here in San Mateo County, is for foster youth. foster youth, go from home to home, go to school. And unfortunately, you're dealing with kids that are 5, 6, 7 years old, and they don't really keep track of their documents. And this is a service that they would have a vault that they would be able to keep, and their documents would be in that vault. So that when they actually do turn 18, apply for a job, need a birth certificate, or need whatever, that would be available to them. And I did talk to one of the core agencies, and they said, although they don't specialize with foster youth, that is a problem they have run into with some of the clients for homeless people and homeless kids and homeless students. So I think that's something that we might want to consider. I attended 2 events that were really pretty nice. One was the County Historical Association's honoring Anna Eshoo as a history maker. And the other one was the Pacifica Resource Center had their annual event to raise money for the holidays and backpacks, adopt a family, etc. So that was nice. November 7th in Half Moon Bay, the Farm Bureau is having their dinner, and I have to admit, it's very unique in that it is at the Long Branch Farm and Saloon there in Half Moon Bay. It's to honor veterans, but everything there is grown or caught or made in San Mateo County, from the fish, there are the hors d'oeuvres, to the steak, to the vegetables, etc., are all cooked and done in San Mateo County. And that is a $100 million a year industry. On November 1st, I'm going to be a panelist representing the County Board of Ed, the Youth Leadership Summit about mapping success in Burlingame. I attended the Jefferson High School District's Housing Board meeting, and unfortunately, they have 45 people on their wait list looking for housing as employees. Attended the San Mateo County School Boards Association meetings, and I did receive an offer I met U.S. Senator Padilla's staffer that handles the San Francisco Bay Area, and I gave her my card for the Board of Ed, and she sent me an email that she would like me to meet with her, and offered the potential that if other trustees wanted to join to talk with the U.S. Senator about education issues, she was open to meeting with us. I also offered that to David Lee, who's on the CSBA forming the SMCSBA's Ledge Committee, and he's very open to doing that and meeting with Padilla. So if any trustee is interested in meeting and being a part of a meeting with Senator Padilla's staff, let me know. That's it.
Thank you. Trustee Alvaro?
Thank you. I had a couple things because it's been a while. So if you recall, we were told about the Court and Community Schools open house that was going to occur, and I asked if it would be appropriate for board members. So they did say we could go, and it was on Zoom, and I did. And I was immensely glad I did, because I was the only attendee, the only person. They recorded it, so it's going to be available to parents, either through the website or somehow they're going to get it out to parents. It was Dr. Jimenez, Mr. Arenas, and Mr. Sayam, Freedom. And they asked me, because we were just chit-chatting before they started recording, waiting for people to come on. So they said, well, since you're here, do you want to welcome parents? So I welcomed parents on behalf of the board. And then after they were finished, turned the recording off, and we talked for several minutes. And the main thing we talked about was the difficulty in getting parents to attend anything. And it's certainly not lack of interest. It's, timing, everything is hard. So we did have some discussions about that, and there's some things that they're going to try to do. But I was glad I did that, and they did a good job. They did a good job. I also have, over the last week or so, met with 2 new superintendents, which is the new superintendent of La Honda Pescadero, Michelle Ross, and also at Cabrillo, I met with Dr. Miramontes. So down in Pescadero, there were a couple things. One was I was extremely excited to hear that CAL FIRE is building a new station. I can't tell you how badly we need a new station down there. If you've ever driven into Pescadero, you go past this little fire station that looks like a garage that holds, that's it. That's what they have. So they're building a new station, and they're building it on Lajana Pescadero Unified District land. So it's going to be right across from the high school. There's a partnership there that had to happen because Pescadero High School is sort of, it's where people go when they're evacuated. It is ground zero for a lot of that stuff down there. So CAL FIRE is going to be right next door to them. It's really excited to hear that. And we talked about some of the challenges in small rural districts, such as transportation, when you're not just going from school A to, the housing that's 5 miles away, but it's just spread out over just this huge district. And people, I don't know if you've ever toured any of the ranches down there. If you're ever interested, let me know, because that can be put together. So many people live on these ranches that are in the middle of nowhere. You think you're in Santa Cruz County, but you're still in the Pescadero district. So we talked about that. We talked about power outages, which is a huge deal down there. Superintendent Ross grew up in Salinas, where she also taught for a number of years. So she absolutely understands the agricultural rural schools and the challenges thereof. So we had a great meeting. I was really glad to sit with her for a while. And we scheduled an hour, and I think I was there for 2.5 hours. I also met with Dr. Miramontes about, just to introduce myself, but some of the challenges going on, because he came to Cabrillo as the interim superintendent. He's from Southern California. He's from Orange County. And he's now lives in Half Moon Bay, and he's been offered, he's the permanent superintendent now. So we talked about some of the challenges, including the rotating administrators over the last several years, which makes it very difficult. There have been, I think, 3 or 4 principals at the middle school over the last few years. It's just really, really hard. And that's true of a number of some of the elementary schools as well, and the high school a little bit. So we talked about some of that and some of his ideas for addressing that. And just, I was really not surprised, but touched by the enthusiasm that both of them bring to the districts that they're serving and the people that they're serving. And he and I were sitting at a coffee house. I met her in her office, but he and I were sitting in a coffee house, and people are coming and going. They're saying hello to him, and they're happy to see him, and he's meeting with PTO parents, and it was really good. And then just last thing is that I'm looking forward to I'll get it right one of these days, ACCBE Zoom meeting tomorrow night. I'm glad they're able to do it on Zoom, because I'm looking forward to that one. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Arias?
Yes, I have a few things I'd like to share. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for having the September 17th San Mateo SMCOE board retreat. As you know, I'm barely about 6-7 months into being appointed to this board. And from the conference that I have attended, I see the importance of having these retreats and working with superintendent and really finding a way to work as a team, work together, because I think for all of us, our purpose is really our students, right? The students, the families are who we serve. So again, I appreciate that retreat, and I hope it's not going to be once a year. Hopefully we find a way to repeat it and have more opportunities like that. I also want to say that on September 29, SMCBA, the quarterly board meeting, I couldn't attend, but I was happy that it happened, and we were able to use some of our attendance in San Diego from the conference that we did go we were able to use some of that information for that presentation. So I was happy to hear that. I couldn't attend because I was at a facilitating and also interpreting for community overcoming relationship abuse regarding healthy relationships. They had a presentation in South San Francisco, so that's where I was while that was happening. And then another thing that I have, I wanted to ask about the protocol for SMCOE on ICE rates. I want to know if there's protocols already in place, and if would it be okay that I can have a copy to see those? As I, again, continue to go to these conferences and hear conversations and hear the community, I like to, as board member of SMCOE, know what is being done and how it's being done. So I hope I can get a copy of that. Appreciate that. Then also, presently, I'm going Monday to Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. to this very important Spanish, in Spanish, Arte de Liderazgo, which is the art of leadership in San Francisco by Rockwood Institute. And it's going to be, well, I've been there for 3 days now, but it's just been so important. I think, attending those opportunities just as the conferences supports the ideas, and as being a new board member, again, I think it's just supporting in a way that I can think a little more critically, and just how much do we have in our decision-making here in, representing our districts and together as a team. So I just want to share that I feel like is the importance of all these meetings that everybody, all of you attend, the subcommittees, the task force, everything that is being presented is a way of, as a board, making sure, again, I go back into the students and the families in San Mateo County, and from this last conference, the president of our board went, and I went to San Antonio, Texas, to the Mexican American School Board Association on October 2nd and October 3rd. We were given this book. It's called Transformative Student Voice, Partnering with Young People for Equitable School Improvement. And the presentations were just really, it's kind of like, we're all adults. We were, at what point of our lives we were, we were at that stage where we're young, and sometimes our voices were not maybe heard in the same way or engaged in the same way. I have obviously not read the book yet. I just got it this Friday, but I was interested to see one of the, in the back, it says, as school leaders, we work in service to students. And this book illuminates the power of centering students as partners with adults to improve schools and school districts. So it just, to me, kind of resonate with the, just joining the committee to think about who's going to be representing, if we're going to have students, for this board. And I just feel, again, how important it is, how, there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of other ideas outside that we can, we can have of how having someone representing that voice that is needed to make these decisions, because we're all here making decisions, and at the end, these outcomes and the changes we want to make is in the lives of this youth, right? So it's so important to hear their voices. So I'm excited to kind of read this book and see what other things we can find for our committee. And then on a personal note, I just want to say that my 27-year-old son just started his fire academy at Palo Alto. He's one of 8, and he's training in Sunnyvale with another 12. So 18 weeks of that. So thank you.
Yay. Thank you. Trustee Bonini?
So I just wanted to share and also thank the board members who attended the San Mateo County School Boards Association first quarterly meeting last Monday. which was focused on supporting immigrant students and families in times of uncertainty and fear of ICE and all of the issues that we're seeing in our community right now. We had some amazing speakers. We also had a great team that put together the program. And I know that Trustee Arias was not at the program, but I know that you participated in putting it together. So I want to thank you. Also, Ligia Andrade Zuniga was the chair. She was leading, I think, the slides in the gathering. So it was a really informative meeting. We had speakers we had Randall Booker from San Mateo Union High School District. We had Diego Perez from San Mateo Foster City, and they presented how they're engaging with students and parents and how they're making families feel safer. They're seeing increases in attendance, which is really great. That's San Mateo Foster City. And then from San Mateo Union, they did share I'm trying to see where the emergency response protocol that they've put together. Aligned with Trustee Arias, I was curious, what are we doing if this were to happen? And again, they haven't seen a lot of this on campus, but they want to be proactive. So if we don't have something that's like this, we might want to talk about it, or maybe it's already in process with staff. So that was great. Faith in Action was also there, sharing resources and how they're helping families. And then we, just as a side note, we had one of the speakers, I think from one of the, can you tell me the name of the conference, the Latino School Boards Association? Is that?
Yes.
So
To papers, that one or?
yeah, the one that was, anyway, so an attorney that presented there, she was still in Southern California, right? So at the last minute, we asked, can we put our meeting on Zoom? And so, of course, we saw that our amazing staff member, Jay Takahashi, was promoted to CTO. He was here that evening helping, and he set up this room. Oh, sorry. He set up this room for the meeting for Zoom. And then we had one board member for SMCSBA that was ill. And so he helped set it up in the other room. So he was so amazing. So thank you, Jay, so much. I thanked him 100 times when I was there. But again, thank you, because that was amazing. So we also had that attorney sharing. So it was just a lot of really great information. There will be all that, the slides and things will be going out hopefully tomorrow or this week sometime. So thank you to Patricia for that, for helping. And then just my final thing is I'm also going to send this out for SMCSBA, but next Thursday, which is October 16th, the Building Trades Council of San Mateo County is putting on their joint apprenticeship training center programs, and they're doing that at the Plumbers Hall. It's from 5:30 to 7, and it's called the Hope and Opportunity Program. They're providing dinner, and that's at UA Local 467, and it's at 1519 North Rollins Road in Burlingame. So it's free to go. They really want to have a lot of educators in the room. So if anyone else is, sees this video and you're in a district, please join. They just want to share how they're partnering with districts and different opportunities. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Gerard?
Thank you. I did attend the San Mateo County School Boards Association dinner last Monday night, and it really, really was very, very informative. There was a lot of information, and it was in some respects scary, really scary when you think about what is and what could be happening to our kids at school. And they're supposed to be safe there, and we keep saying that, and then all these awful things are happening in schools, and it's just frightening. But there was a great deal of good information shared, and the San Mateo Union's high school district really has quite a comprehensive program that they've put together, and it was very nice that they brought handouts for everyone there so that you could read exactly what their protocol was, but it was well worth attending the evening. I also want to comment on the retreat. We are so grateful to Dr. Patterson for being our facilitator And we did have a meeting to go over how the retreat went and what our future plans were going to be. And we did ask Dr. Patterson if he would be willing to be our facilitator ongoing. And he said that he would love to, but, and I hate that word, but with his schedule that he didn't feel like he could commit, but that he would help us find someone that would be appropriate to be an ongoing facilitator. And we do have the next retreat coming up, which is November 5th. And he will be facilitating that retreat, and hopefully with whoever will be taking over from him going forward. So we're looking forward to November 5th. And as Trustee Alvaro said, and also Trustee Love, we're very excited that ACCBE is having a Zoom meeting tomorrow night on deep dives for court and community schools. And this is a 3-part series that we've planned. And this is part number 1. And it will be on Zoom at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. And I'm hoping that you'll all attend. We have guest speakers for all sessions. And there's really going to be a lot of good information and participation in all 3 of these Zoom meetings that we will be having. So I really encourage everybody to attend if you can. And I think that's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, November 5th, that will be our next board retreat with Dr. Dave Patterson with a co-facilitator, hopefully, so that way it can be passed on. And then once we have that co-facilitator, he is going to be recommending someone, and our county office team will also be looking for someone. But once we solidify that person, we'll be able to move forward with more dates and details after that. I also attended the SMC SBA quarterly dinner, dinner and meeting. It was great, a lot of information, and delicious food and a great company. And then I also wanted to thank the board for approving my attendance for the Mexican American School Board Association conference. Again, that was one that I was reached out to and invited to, and it was my first time attending. And it was 2 days, but it was jam-packed with great information, amazing presenters and workshops. And then I loved their inclusion of the students. There were different folklorico dances from the younger kids to older kids. And then there was also a mariachi band of students playing instruments and also singing. It was just so beautiful to see. And then they had an auction for student art. So very inclusive of the students and just celebrating their culture, their art, and everything. So it was beautiful. And we were invited back next year. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we're able to go again. Again, very informative also of different legislation that's impacting our immigrant families, special education, and other areas in education. So yes, thank you for letting me attend that. And I think that is all I have. So item 9 is our adjournment. The next regular meeting will take place on Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025 at 7 p.m. And this meeting is now adjourned.